Okay, good evening, everyone. As we are dedicated by Baruch Nishmas Yaakov Chaim Ben Abbas, the Baskittel, Avram Ben Shmuel HaKayin, by Yaakov Umansky, Hakos Satov to Rav and the Zoom family, and Nachas from children and grandchildren, by A.B. Spry, Nachas from children and grandchildren, as Salah from London, Joshua Rosenberg, and by Shalom Fogelin, Nishmas Yaakov Zeb Ben Yehuda Aryeh, Rivka Bas Yaakov Yosef, Sivya Miriam Bas Gad, and Yosef Ben Siyam Ben Yaakov Zev. We welcome in Mel Zachter, Saba. We welcome in Stephen Holtzman and Shalom Fogel, Marshall Castle, Menachem Umansky, Reuven Pollack, Dr. Block, Mark Frankel, Shimon Klein, Yisrael Fisher, Shelley Zeitlin, Irving Fishbaum, Yitzi Fuchs, Gedalia Engel, Michal, Aaron Swade, Eddie Chazan. Eddie, good, welcome back. Rabbi Kranz, Mike Shaliman, Nachman Chapler, Naftali Jablin, Avram Rezepkowitz, Yeshua Shmuel Eisenberg, Ilya Shutman, Yitzi Muller. We have David Helfgott on Kalaloshin here in the shul. We have Berish Gesselman, we have Chaim Kramer, we have Michal Avram, Chavin, and Ruvain Shannon.
Can I give you a name?
Sure.
You guys say tonight, Yisrael Tzvi.
Yisrael Tzvi.
Ben Chaim Yoshua Falak, my father.
Yisrael Tzvi Ben Chaim Yeshua Falk. That's not just any Yortzeit. Your father's neshama should have a great aliyah. He should derive much nachas from you and your family. And Richard Rosenzweig has just joined us on Facebook. And so if you remember, Rabbi, so we start at the very top of Daf Kuf Yud Gimel Amud Aleph. If you remember, we said that in the beginning, this was only for one generation, but they didn't want a girl to marry out of her tribe, because if let's say she was married, let's say she was born, her father was from Shevet Yehuda. If she would marry somebody from Shevet Dan, so then there's two ways that she could cause the Yerusha to move away from her father's tribe, which we don't want. One way would be if she marries somebody from Dan and she dies, then her husband would inherit her, causing the Yerusha to move from Shevet Yehuda to Shevet Dan. Or there's another way, which is called Sibas Haben. And that is, if she married somebody from Dan and had a son, even if her husband predeceases her and doesn't inherit her, but when she dies, her son would inherit her, and that would cause the Nachala to move from Shevet Yehuda to Shevet Dan. So that would be, there's two ways, Sibas Habal and Sibas Haben. Now the Gemara says, Tanya Idach, we learned in another Braisa, you shouldn't cause the inheritance to go from one tribe to another tribe. That's talking about Besibas Habala Kasamadaber. That's talking about when she coming from Shevet Yehuda, if she dies, then since her husband is from Shevet Dan, it would cause the Nachla to be Musav, to pass from her father's Shevet Yehuda to her husband's Shevet Dan. You say it's talking about it passing over because of the husband. Maybe it's passing over because of the son. In other words, she would marry her husband from Dan. Her husband predeceases her, but now her son, which follows the Shevet of her husband, it will pass over if she dies and goes to the son. Says the Gemara, no, Kishu Aimer, because there's another pasuk. Kishu Aimer, when it says, "V'lo yisasim nachla lebnei Yisrael mimata el mata," so it shouldn't cause the inheritance to go from one tribe to another tribe. Hare hasibas haben emor. That's already talking about transference to a son. What do I use for the pasuk? That's talking about besibas habal hakasim. That's talking about when it's transferred to the husband and not to the son. She dies and the husband inherits her. and the husband is from a different shape. Now, both these brises quoted the Kulei Alma Mias, both of the brises, the one that we learned at the end of the daf yesterday, and the one that we learned now, says that the pasuk that says Mimata Lamata Acher, that pasuk is talking about Besibas Habal. Says the Gemara, Besibas Habal Akas Medaber, that it's talking about when it passes to a different shevet through the husband. Now, my mashma, there's two psukim. Why do both of them pick the pasuk of Eloi Sasim Nachal Mimata Lamata Acher to be talking about when it passes through the husband? Says the Gemara, well, I think we delete the word simon. No, so Mesoris Hashas says that simon is the name of an Amoira. That's very interesting. Some delete it. The Dikdukai Seifrim says that the word simon is deleted. But the Rashbam says that there's a Mandi Amar, this is a really unheard of name, that Simon was the name of an Amira. Simon Aimer. It's an interesting name, right? Simon Amar, they said, the wife said, I dated my husband and I found he had the right Simon. Right? His name was Simon. Right? So, Simon Amar. Simon Amar Rabba Barav Shila. Simon says in the name of Rabba Barav Shila. Amar Kra Ish. It says Ish in the pasuk. And we know Ish is a reference to a husband. Says, well, that can't be because Travayu Ish Ksibu. Both psukim say Ish. El Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Amar Kra Yidbeku. Now Yidbeku is a lashon of marriage because it says V'dovak Be'ishtai. Says, well, that also is not conclusive because both psukim say Yidbeku. Travayu Yidbeku Ksibu. El Amar Rava Amar Kra. This pasuk, when it says Yidbeku, it says Yidbeku Matais. And when the two tribes cleave in marriage. Rav Ashi says a different reason. Amar Kra Mimata Lamata Acher. It transfers through her, if she marries into another shevet, it transfers from one tribe to another. Now, if it transfers to her son, it's hard to call the son another in reference to the mother, even though it is another tribe. But since the child is the mother's flesh, it's hard to consider it another. A husband, since there's no blood relative, is not a blood relative, that's more likely that when it says Acher, it's referring to a husband. Because Ben Lav Acheru, it's hard to say that a Ben is another, since it's the flesh and blood of the mother. Amar Rabbi Yavo, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Amar Rabbi Yani, Amar Rabbi. Rabbi Yavo says the name of Rabbi Yochanan, the name of Rabbi Yani, and the name of Rabbi. Umataba, and this came to them. Now, when it says Amar Rabbi Yavo, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, that means that Rabbi Yavo heard it directly from Rabbi Yochanan. So Amar Rabbi Yavo, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yavo heard it directly from Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan heard it directly from Rabbi Yanai. Rabbi Yanai heard it directly from Rebbe. Rebbe had a report, but he didn't hear it directly. That's why it says Umataba Mishmei de Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha. You see, this is when we talk about the Gemara being a Messiah. You see how exact the Messiah is. If it's not heard directly from, so then it says it wasn't directly. But he had it, obviously, with a good, reliable report from the great Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha. How do we know when a husband inherits his wife, he only takes what was by her at the time of death? Not what was...
The shirt got dirty. I don't know what I'm doing. You can't get it on.
Not not what was owed to her. What was owed to her, the husband doesn't inherit. He only inherits what was by her at the time of death. Otherwise, the son will inherit it, but not the husband. Shenema, how do we know this? Shenema uskuv haylid es yoir, skuv begat yoir, vayiloi esrim mishalosh arim be'eretz hagilad. And Yor had 23 cities in the land of Gilad. Now that means that it's not coming from his father. He had independently 23 cities from the land of Gilad. Now how did that happen? Minayin l'Yor, where did Yor have cities that wasn't his father's? Minayin l'Yor shelo yehoyu lo l'skuf. Now, if you remember, we said that there would be a possibility that it could be that Yor bought them. But then that wouldn't be any type of novelty. The Gemara says, Ella, it must be our case. Malamed shenosa skuv isha. Skuv had a Mrs. Skuv. And their child was Yor. Umeisa b'chaye morisheha. And she died during the lifetime of the people that would transmit to her. In other words, Mrs. Skuv had a father, but the father was alive still. So she didn't inherit yet. And then after she died, then her father died. Mrs. Skuv died during the lifetime of her father, and then Umeisu Marisheha, and then her father died. Now, her father was at 23 cities. We don't say that posthumously it passes through her and goes to her husband. No, because since that was only Ro'i, it was only coming to her, but she didn't inherit it. It goes to her son. It goes to Yor, and it doesn't go to her husband. The Meisa Marisha v'Yorsha Yor. So that's a raya that a husband doesn't get what was Ro'i, only what was Murzik, only what she inherited during her lifetime. Instead, it passes down to her son. V'Aimer, we have another raya. V'Elazar ben Aaron Meis, Elazar the son of Aaron died. V'Yikparu Isai, and they buried him in Begivas Pinchas Benai, in the hill belonging to Pinchas his son. That means that it didn't belong to him, it belonged to Pinchas. So again, the Gemara says, where did Pinchas get it if it wasn't his father? Menayin lePinchas shelo yehoyu lo Elazar. Malamed shenasa Elazar isha. Mrs. Elazar. Now, Mrs. Elazar had a father with a hill, with a giver. Umeisa b'chayim Marisha, and Mrs. Elazar died during the lifetime of her father. Umeisa Marisha, and then her father died. So her husband Elazar doesn't get it because it was only Roy. It wasn't Murzik at the time that she died. Rather, it goes to her son V'Yorsha Pinchas. So Gemara wants to know, why do we need two psukim to teach us this law? Why do we need two psukim? Says Gemara, well, because there's another possibility. And the possibility is Yor got the 23 cities from his own wife. Not from Mrs. Skuv, his mother. He got it from his wife. Yor was married to a wife. And he inherited his own wife, and it's not teaching us anything about not inheriting from a wife something that is not Mosik. Talmud Leimer v'Elazar ben Aaron Meis. Says the Gemara, but we said that there was another way that Pinchas could have got it without it being by his father, and that is that he got it from a Charamim, that somebody dedicated it as Chermei Kahanim. V'chi tema denaflei b'stei charamim. Amar kra b'nai. It says Pinchas b'nai. The word, we know Pinchas was Elazar's son. Why does it say Pinchas b'nai? Nachal ha'ruyalai v'yorshay, nachal ha'ruyalai, a nachla, an inheritance that was fit for him, v'yorsha b'nai, and it was inherited by his son. In other words, the reason why it says b'nai is he got it as inheritance, as being a son, and not as charamim. And so we see that although Skuv's wife was in line to inherit it from her father, but since when she died, the father was alive still, so therefore it was only Ro'ilah. Then when the father dies, it doesn't pass through her to her husband, because the husband only gets what's Murzik and not what's Roi. Rather, it goes to her son, Pinchas. And then we learn of Bnei Achais. What's the case of Bnei Achais? And we do have 29 Zoomers here tonight, which is very nice. Eddie, it's really very nice to have you. Really, really, really very nice.
This inherits only when there was, she had no brother, nobody else to inherit.
No. Otherwise she wouldn't get it.
She wouldn't get it. That's just the one shot.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol niyeh b'dvaro. Okay. In the chain of Yerusha, if let's say Chatzkel dies, Chatzkel has no children, and he has no father, and he has no brother. But Chatzkel has a sister. Gila is Chatzkel's sister. Gila also died. But Gila has two sons, Reuven and Shimon. Reuven and Shimon inherit Chatzkel. That's the case of Bnei Achais, the sons of a sister. Now, here's an interesting question. If, let's say, Gila had a son and a daughter, does the son get before the daughter, or do they get equally? So says the Gemara, Tana b'nei achais, the sons of the sister, v'loi b'nei achais, and not the daughters of the sister. Now that doesn't mean that the daughters of the sister never inherit, because if there's no sons, then the daughters would be next. L'mai hilchasa, Amar Rav Sheshes l'kadein. It's to tell us that if there's a son of the sister, the daughter doesn't get it. Now how do we know this? Amar Rav Sheshes l'kadein. Tani Rav Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak kamei de Rav Huna, because it says v'yorash, and the son of the sister inherits. Makish Yerusha Shniya Yerusha Rishayna. We juxtapose a second generation inheritance to the first generation inheritance. My Yerusha Rishayna. Just like if a man dies, if Chatzkel dies and he has a son and a daughter, Ben Koydem Labas, Af Yerusha Shniya. So also the second generation, Ben Koydem Labas. The son comes before the daughter. Now, Tani Rabba Bar Chanina Kamei Rav Nachman V'haya b'yoyim hinchilu es banav. Here it says in the pasuk V'haya b'yoyim hinchilu es banav, on the day that you transmit to your children. Now it says an odd halacha. B'yoyim atamanchil nachalois. Only in the day does one transmit Yerusha. V'yatamanchil nachalois b'layla. Not in the night. So the Gemara looks like incredulously. What do you mean? If somebody dies in the night, the family doesn't inherit? Amalei Abai, let me after the Shakub Yamama who the Yosele Bnei. Only if he dies during the day does his children inherit him. Man the Shakub Belelia Lo Yosele Bnei. That doesn't make sense. What it means is we cannot litigate about Yerusha in the night. We cannot create a legal inheritance in the night. Dilma din nachalas come, because we know mishpat is only in the day and not in the night. The Tanya, v'ha'yisel l'bnei Yisrael, and this should be, it says in the laws of inheritance, v'ha'yisel l'bnei Yisrael l'chukas mishpat, a statute of justice. Oirah kol ha'parsha kula, this creates that the entire parsha liya is din. It has a din of a judgment. So again, the question is, in pertaining to what? Well, it has a din of judgment. Pertaining to what? So says the Gemara, Ukud Rabbi Yehuda. Like Rabbi Yehuda explains, the Amr Rabbi Yehuda, Shloisha shenichnesu levaker es hachayil. If 3 people come to visit a sick person, now 3 people could be themselves a bezdin. Ratzu kaisin, if the man makes a deathbed testament, that means he says he's giving as a matnash shkivmeira, the gift of a dying man. Now, matnash shkivmeira has a special law that if he doesn't die, it's off the table. If he does die, it's considered binding even if there was no kinyan. It's kiksuvim ukemisurin dami. Now, if he says it in front of 3 people, ratzu kaisvin, they could either write it up and act as witnesses, and then the people would have to take it to court to make the claim. Ratzu oisim din, or they could act as dayanim and actually make the bequest, because they're 3. Shnayim, 2 that are not a bezdin kaisvin, they could only serve as witnesses. Ve'ein oisim din. V'amar Rav Chisda, that which we say 3 could be dayanim, lo yishanu ela b'yayim. That's only if he told it to them during the day. Aval b'layla, but in the night, since there's no din in the night, afilu shloisha kaisvin, since at the time that they told it, they couldn't serve as dayanim, so they became edim, and therefore they can't litigate it by themselves even in the day, because ein aid nasa dayan. A witness cannot then become a dayan. Vein oisin din. Then they can't do it din even the next day. My timer, since when they heard it, they couldn't act as judges, so they served as witnesses. Davalu aidim. Ve'ein aid nasa dayan. So it's in a law like this that we said that the halacha is that you can't do the din of Yerusha in the night. So he says, this is indeed what I was talking about. Now, Rabbi Yisrael, we're going to do now the Mishnah Yomis, but I already did today's Mishnah Yomis. I noticed that Aaron was very, very worried about the Mishnah Yomis, so we're already going to get ahead now and learn tomorrow's Mishnah Yomis.